Krillak had returned. After years on distant battlefields, he finally stood among his own kind again, in the vast, shimmering hall of the Alien Academy. The walls glowed with faint energy lines, and young cadets milled about, their metallic armor clinking softly. They were full of energy, full of pride, and full of questions. Today, Krillak would share stories of humans, the species that had haunted his memories, challenged his mind, and forced him to respect a life form he had once underestimated. The cadets gathered in a semicircle around him, eyes wide, antennas twitching with curiosity. "You have faced humans?" one of them asked, his voice high and trembling slightly. Krillak nodded, his gaze distant. "They are not like any species we have faced before," he said. "Do not be fooled by their size or the simplicity of their tools. What they lack in technology, they make up for in courage, creativity, and unity." The cadets leaned in, eager for more. Krillak took a deep breath and began his first story, the story of his first encounter with humans. The first contact. It had been on the planet Zerath 9, a world with jagged mountains and harsh, icy winds. Krillak and his unit had been sent to scout a human colony reported to be near the northern cliffs. The humans there were supposedly primitive, barely able to survive their harsh environment. Yet, as Krillak approached, he saw something unexpected. The humans were small, hunched, and fragile-looking. They carried simple weapons, mostly rifles and blades. Their clothing was rugged but clearly designed to protect against the cold. Krillak expected to see panic or fear, but he saw something else: determination. The humans were working together to build barricades and traps around their village. They moved swiftly and silently, using the rocks and ice of their environment as shields. Krillak was impressed. Even the young humans, barely over half a human's full height, carried heavy loads and performed tasks that some of Krillak's own soldiers struggled with. As Krillak watched, a small group of humans, led by a tall, confident figure, he would later learn her name was Captain Alara, set a trap for his patrol. The humans rolled large boulders down the slope, timing it perfectly so that Krillak's unit barely avoided being crushed. The precision and timing were remarkable. "They use the land itself as a weapon," Krillak said to himself. "They fight with the planet, not just against us." The first skirmish Krillak's squad advanced cautiously, expecting an easy victory. The humans were supposed to be disorganized and weak, yet every step forward was met with new obstacles: pits covered with ice, tripwires, and cleverly camouflaged barriers. Krillak realized that the humans had studied their movements and learned their tactics. The first exchange of fire was chaotic. The humans were quick, darting from cover to cover. Krillak had never seen such coordination from what his commanders had called a primitive species. They communicated silently, using hand signals and sharp whistles, and it worked perfectly. One human, barely older than a child by alien standards, threw a small explosive that destroyed one of Krillak's patrol vehicles. The blast was enough to force the aliens to retreat, regroup, and reconsider their approach. Krillak felt a strange mix of frustration and admiration. Even in retreat, the humans did not give chase recklessly. They respected their own lives and the lives of their companions. That, Krillak realized, was one of the first signs of the humanity he would come to respect. The shock of unity. As Krillak watched the humans during the battle, he noticed something that stood out even more than their clever traps or courage: their unity. In one moment, a human soldier was trapped under a fallen piece of debris. Instead of leaving him, his comrades risked themselves to lift the debris and carry him to safety. In Krillak's experience, most species in war abandon the weak or injured immediately. Not these humans. "Why do they care for each other so much?" Krillak muttered to himself. His comrades laughed at the thought, dismissing it as a weakness. But Krillak did not see it as weakness. He saw strength. When a young cadet in Krillak's patrol faltered, the humans did not attack him immediately. They waited, observed, and used clever tactics rather than brute force. Krillak realized that humans were not just strong or clever. They were disciplined, patient, and able to think ahead in ways his species rarely did. The capture and surprise Krillak's patrol attempted a second approach. This time they were ready for traps, scanning every inch of the terrain. But humans had anticipated that as well. They had prepared decoys, false paths, and even small hidden shelters where they could strike unexpectedly. During the chaos, Krillak himself was nearly captured. A small squad of humans surrounded him, their rifles pointed, but instead of attacking immediately, they observed him. One human, again likely Captain Alara, approached cautiously. She spoke in a language Krillak did not understand, but her tone was calm, almost diplomatic. She did not shoot him. She assessed him, as if trying to understand what kind of opponent he was. It was at that moment Krillak realized something profound. These humans were not merely fighting to survive. They were testing, learning, and adapting constantly. Every move he made was met with a calculated response. Every tactic he thought would work was met with counter-strategy. The first respect. After the skirmish, Krillak returned to his commanders, shaken and thoughtful. "They are clever," he said. "More than we expected." His commanders dismissed his words, saying humans were still weak, primitive, and unlikely to pose a true threat. Krillak knew better. Humans had an energy he had never encountered before, a spark of ingenuity, resilience, and moral courage that could not be measured by their weapons or size. That night, Krillak could not sleep. He remembered the look in the humans' eyes during the skirmish, the look of determination, not fear. He remembered the way they saved their comrades and used the environment as a weapon. For the first time, he questioned everything he had been taught about superiority. He began to write notes in his journal, sketches of human traps, descriptions of their strategies, and observations about their behavior. Each note reminded him that humans were more than just survivors. They were a species with a spirit that demanded respect. Reflections at the Academy now. Standing before the cadets at the Alien Academy, Krillak paused. He looked at the young faces, eager to hear stories of human weakness. Instead, he shared what he had learned. "They are terrifying," he said. "Not because they are stronger or faster, but because they are unpredictable. They adapt, they innovate, and they care for each other. Underestimate them, and you will regret it." The cadets were silent. Krillak could see their minds turning, trying to understand what he meant. Some were skeptical, some were intrigued, but all of them had felt the weight of his words. He smiled faintly, remembering one last detail from that first encounter. The humans had sung to each other during the cold nights, a simple melody of hope and courage. It was a sound Krillak would never forget. It reminded him that even in the darkest times, humans carried a light within them. "And that," Krillak said, looking around the room, "is why the humans are more dangerous than we ever expected. Not because they destroy, but because they endure, they inspire, and sometimes they even teach us how to be better." The cadets sat in stunned silence, processing the words of the veteran who had faced the impossible and survived. For Krillak, this was only the beginning. His stories of human ingenuity and bravery had only just started, and he knew that the more they learned, the more terrifying humans would seem. The Alien Academy Hall was quiet, filled with the soft hum of energy flowing through the walls. Krillak's eyes scanned the faces of the young cadets before him. He could feel their curiosity, their excitement, and their doubt. They wanted to hear the stories of humans again. But this time, he would tell them about the battles that changed his perception forever, battles that showed the full measure of human courage, strategy, and spirit. The planet of fire and ice Krillak's second encounter with humans was on the planet Vorlis III, a harsh world of extremes. The northern hemisphere was covered in frozen plains and jagged mountains, while the south burned with volcanic heat. Humans had established a settlement in the borderlands, a place no alien would have thought worth defending. The mission seemed simple: scout the colony, capture or eliminate resistance, and return with minimal effort. Krillak's unit approached, confident and armed with advanced technology far beyond the humans' basic weapons. They expected a swift victory. What they found instead was organized resistance, impossible traps, and human soldiers who seemed to anticipate every alien move. Krillak's unit was caught in a labyrinth of trenches, barricades, and camouflaged positions. Every attempt to advance was met with fire, clever diversions, and disappearing targets. "They think faster than we can move," Krillak whispered to his lieutenant, who frowned in disbelief. The human squad. At the center of the resistance was Captain Ilara, the same human Krillak had seen on Zarath 9. She was taller than most of her squad, with a sharp gaze that never left the battlefield. Her presence alone seemed to inspire her soldiers, who followed her orders with a precision that shocked the alien forces. Krillak observed as she led a small squad into enemy territory. They carried only basic rifles, some handmade explosives, and equipment that seemed laughably simple compared to the aliens' advanced technology. Yet they moved with perfect coordination, setting ambushes, misdirecting the aliens, and retreating just as quickly. At one point, Krillak witnessed a human soldier, barely more than a teenager, throw a homemade explosive that destroyed a heavily armored alien vehicle. The explosion was timed perfectly, forcing Krillak's squad to scatter. He realized then that humans could turn weakness into strength, using imagination and courage as their weapons. The first major engagement. The true battle began when Krillak's unit tried to storm the human settlement. Hundreds of humans, including men, women, and even teenagers, defended their homes with everything they had. The aliens expected chaos and panic, but the humans were calm, coordinated, and unafraid. Traps triggered automatically, cutting off alien paths. Barricades fell into place as humans moved swiftly between positions. Krillak watched in disbelief as a human engineer rigged a small power generator to overload an alien communication hub, temporarily disabling the enemy's advanced sensors. The aliens fired relentlessly, but the humans anticipated every move. They retreated when necessary, regrouped silently, and struck again with precision. Krillak realized that humans did not simply react. They adapted. Every failure taught them a new tactic, and every victory was shared humbly among the soldiers. The human morale. One of the most striking things Krillak noticed was the humans' morale. Even when outnumbered, cold, hungry, and exhausted, they refused to give in. He saw humans singing quietly during the night to boost each other's courage, sharing small meals and offering words of encouragement. At one point, a human soldier fell into a trap of Krillak's squad. Instead of panicking, his comrades carefully freed him, covering each other as they moved. Krillak watched this and felt a strange sense of admiration. Many alien soldiers would have abandoned the fallen, focusing only on their mission. Humans acted differently. They valued life, even in the midst of war. Krillak realized that the human spirit was not fueled by hatred or anger, but by loyalty, courage, and a sense of justice. This was something his commanders had never taught him to value. Captain Ilara's strategy. Captain Ilara was a strategist in her own right. Krillak observed as she led a counterattack against a heavily fortified alien base. Using only basic equipment and a small squad, she devised a plan to create a diversion while sneaking into the enemy's weak points. Her soldiers moved silently, using natural cover and careful timing. They disabled key equipment, opened gates for the rest of the resistance, and withdrew before the aliens could respond. Krillak watched in disbelief. A small group of humans had outmaneuvered a far larger and better-equipped force. "It's impossible," Krillak muttered. "How can they think so quickly, adapt so fast?" The answer, he realized, lay in their teamwork and courage. Every human knew their role, trusted each other completely, and acted with a clarity of purpose that the aliens rarely displayed. The psychological edge Krillak also noticed something else, the psychological edge humans possessed. They used tricks and misdirection to confuse alien forces. Some humans feigned retreats, luring alien squads into ambushes. Others created illusions with lights, smoke, and mirrors to make their forces seem larger than they were. Even in moments of fear, humans acted with precision. Krillak recalled one incident where a small group of humans faced a massive alien drone. Instead of panicking, they worked together, using a combination of explosives, timing, and distraction to destroy the drone without losing a single soldier. The aliens relied on technology and strength, but humans relied on their minds and hearts. Krillak realized that this combination was almost unbeatable. A narrow escape. During one particularly dangerous mission, Krillak himself was almost captured. A group of humans surrounded him, using the terrain perfectly to their advantage. He had no escape and no reinforcements in sight. Then something remarkable happened. Instead of attacking immediately, the humans waited, observing him carefully. They did not move recklessly. They studied his reactions, trying to predict his decisions. Krillak, for the first time, felt fear, not of death, but of being outsmarted by a species he had considered weak. He managed to escape only because of his own quick thinking, but he never forgot that moment. The humans had shown him that bravery was not just about fighting, it was about understanding, adapting, and acting with purpose. Reflections on humanity. After the battle, Krillak returned to his commanders, exhausted and thoughtful. The humans had not been destroyed. In fact, they had grown stronger, smarter, and more resilient after each encounter. Krillak began to write detailed reports, not just of human tactics, but of their spirit. He wrote about their courage, their loyalty, and their ability to inspire each other. He wrote about how humans could turn weakness into strength, fear into courage, and uncertainty into opportunity. Krillak realized that this was a species unlike any other, a species that deserved respect, not disdain. Even as the alien forces celebrated minor victories, Krillak felt a growing respect for the humans. They were not just survivors. They were innovators, thinkers, and moral warriors. They fought not just for themselves, but for each other, and sometimes even for their enemies. Teaching moments back at the academy, Krillak looked at the cadets again. Their eyes were wide with wonder. They wanted to hear about the humans' strength, their battles, and their courage. Krillak smiled faintly. "Humans are clever, yes," he said. "They are brave, yes. But the most important lesson is this. Humans fight not because they hate, but because they care. They protect each other. They think ahead. They endure. And they inspire. That is why they are dangerous. Not just as soldiers, but as a species." The cadets whispered among themselves. Some were skeptical, but many were thoughtful. Krillak knew that he had planted a seed of respect for humanity, a seed that might grow into admiration or even fear when they faced humans in future battles. The human spirit in action. Before concluding, Krillak shared one final story from the battle. A human medic had rescued several wounded soldiers under heavy fire. Despite the danger, the medic moved calmly, treating the injured and carrying them to safety. Krillak could not help but admire the courage of one so small against such overwhelming odds. "The humans do not fight alone," Krillak said. "They fight for each other. That is what makes them terrifying and inspiring at the same time. You cannot predict them. You cannot break them easily. And you cannot destroy what they protect with their hearts." The cadets remained silent. They were listening, learning, and slowly understanding the lesson Krillak had learned firsthand. Humans were not just soldiers. They were symbols of courage, unity, and innovation. And Krillak knew that this lesson was only beginning. Krillak stood once more before the young cadets, his tall figure casting a long shadow in the academy hall. The cadets were silent, eager to hear the next chapter of his encounters with humans. After all, humans had already surprised him once on Zerath 9 and again on Vorlus 3. But the story he was about to tell was unlike any other, a story of a battle that should have been impossible to win. And yet the humans turned the odds in their favor. The Siege of Ardentia, the human planet. Ardentia had been under alien attack for weeks. Its cities lay in ruins, fires burned across its plains, and alien fleets patrolled the skies relentlessly. Krillak's superiors had expected humans to surrender. After all, the aliens had the technology, the numbers, and the experience. But the humans did not surrender. They fought, they adapted, and they inspired those around them to fight alongside them. Krillak watched from a distant hill as human soldiers coordinated with civilians, engineers, and even neighboring alien species who had chosen to ally with humans. The humans had turned the battlefield into a maze of clever defenses, traps, and mobile units. Every inch of the city was used strategically, from collapsed buildings that hid snipers to tunnels that allowed humans to move unseen beneath alien lines. Human ingenuity. Captain Alara had returned, now older and even wiser. She led the human resistance with precision and calm authority. Her squad, once small, had grown into a network of soldiers, engineers, and strategists. Krillak watched her as she studied alien movements, identifying weak points, and devising creative solutions. In one daring operation, a team of humans used recycled alien technology to disrupt communications among enemy troops. They had scavenged alien devices, studied them, and modified them using simple tools and ingenuity. The result was chaos among the alien forces, allowing humans to reclaim a strategic area of the city with minimal losses. Krillak felt a mix of admiration and unease. He had trained his entire life to think like an alien soldier, yet here were humans, small, fragile, and seemingly simple, outsmarting him at every turn. The power of teamwork. What stood out the most to Krillak was not the weapons or the strategy. It was the humans themselves. Each soldier, each civilian, each small squad worked as a single organism. During one attack, Krillak observed a squad of humans moving through a collapsed street. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and under heavy fire. Yet they communicated silently, passed supplies, and coordinated their movements perfectly. One soldier drew enemy attention, allowing others to flank the aliens. Another used a makeshift explosive to destroy a key armored vehicle, and the youngest of them, barely more than a child by alien standards, carried water and medical supplies to wounded comrades under fire. No alien tactics, no amount of firepower could break this unity. Krillak realized that humans were not fighting alone. They fought for each other, for their planet, and for something greater than themselves. Inspiring allies. Krillak was surprised when he saw other species, those who had been enemies or neutral, begin to fight alongside humans. Why? Because humans inspired them. The courage of a single human soldier could rally dozens of allies. Humans did not boast about victories. They shared credit, encouraged those around them, and lifted morale. In battle, a human's actions could turn despair into hope and weakness into strength. Krillak had never witnessed anything like it. At one point, he saw Captain Alara negotiate with a neutral alien species, convincing them to join the fight against their common enemy. She did not threaten them or intimidate them. She simply spoke with honesty, showing courage and purpose. The aliens agreed, and the tide of the battle began to shift. turning the tide. The aliens had expected easy victory, but humans had other plans. Using intelligence, adaptability, and sheer courage, the humans turned a defensive battle into a counter-offensive. Krillak watched as humans repurposed alien vehicles, using captured tanks as mobile barricades and transport units. Engineers modified weapons to be more efficient, soldiers used the terrain creatively, and civilians supported logistics, repairs, and communication. One remarkable tactic involved a network of mirrors and sunlight to blind alien drone sensors during the day. At night, humans used the city lights to create illusions of larger forces. Krillak was amazed. A species he had considered primitive was demonstrating strategic brilliance on a level he had never seen before. Individual acts of heroism. In the chaos, Krillak saw countless acts of individual heroism. A human medic risked his life to drag wounded comrades to safety under continuous fire. Another soldier held a position alone to allow civilians to escape, and Captain Alara herself led from the front, inspiring others by example. These moments were small individually, but collectively they created a force stronger than any technology or weapon. Krillak realized that humans were terrifying not because they destroyed, but because they endured, adapted, and lifted each other up. The alien perspective. Krillak had faced many species in his career, but none like humans. They were not invincible, nor were they the most advanced technologically. Yet they had qualities that no alien could replicate: courage, creativity, resilience, and the ability to inspire others. He reflected on a moment when a group of humans had set a trap that turned the enemy's superior numbers against themselves. The aliens had relied on brute force, but humans relied on intelligence, adaptation, and psychology. Krillak realized then that human warfare was not just about weapons, it was about the mind and the heart. He also realized that humans could endure losses without losing purpose. Each setback made them stronger, more determined, and more inventive. They did not despair. They learned. They did not quit. They fought smarter. The climactic battle. The final day of the siege came. Alien forces had pushed humans to the edge, and the city was nearly destroyed. Yet humans stood firm. Krillak watched as squads of soldiers and civilians worked together to launch a coordinated counterattack. Using every resource available, humans struck at key points: supply lines, command posts, and armored units. The alien forces were thrown into disarray. Krillak's unit was caught in the middle, forced to retreat and regroup. Humans moved swiftly, decisively, and with clarity of purpose that Krillak could not match. At the end of the day, humans had reclaimed significant territory. Alien commanders were stunned. How could a species so small, so seemingly weak, achieve such results? Krillak knew the answer. Humans were more than soldiers. They were a force of courage, intelligence, and unity. Lessons learned. After the battle, Krillak returned to his own lines, reflecting on what he had witnessed. Humans were not the strongest physically, nor did they have the most advanced weapons. But they had something no alien army could replicate: heart. Humans inspired loyalty. They adapted to every situation, and they used both mind and body to achieve the impossible. Krillak began writing detailed reports on human strategy, not just for military purposes, but for understanding. Humans were a study in ingenuity and moral courage. Even his own comrades began to notice it. Some whispered about humans in awe, others in fear. Krillak could see the seeds of respect and hesitation growing. Sharing the story at the academy. Back at the Alien Academy, Krillak looked at the cadets. They were silent, absorbed, imagining the courage, the unity, and the ingenuity of humans. Krillak wanted them to understand that humans were not just another enemy. They were a species that could change perspectives, inspire allies, and challenge assumptions. "They are terrifying," he said quietly. "Not because of their strength, but because of their mind, their heart, and their spirit. They adapt, they endure, they fight for each other and for what they believe is right. Underestimate them at your own risk. The cadets nodded slowly, some wide-eyed, some thoughtful. Krillak smiled faintly. The lesson was sinking in. Humans were not just survivors. They were an unstoppable force when driven by courage and unity. The human spirit endures. Before concluding part 2 of his stories, Krillak shared a quiet moment from the battle. During the night, after heavy fighting, humans lit small fires across the city and sang quietly, not out of fear, but out of hope. Their voices carried across the battlefield, giving courage to their allies and defiance to their enemies. Krillak could not forget that sound. It reminded him that humans fought not just for victory, but for something greater than themselves, a sense of community, hope, and resilience. And Krillak knew with certainty that this spirit would not be broken, not by numbers, not by weapons, not even by the most advanced alien forces. Humans were unstoppable because they fought with everything they had, mind, heart, and soul. The Academy Hall was silent. Krillak paused, letting the memory of the humans sink into the minds of the young cadets. His stories had already shocked, inspired, and challenged them. Now, it was time to share the lessons he had learned, the moments that changed him forever, and the truth about a species his people had once underestimated. The aftermath of battle. After the siege of Ardentia, Krillak had spent days observing the humans. The city was scarred, buildings burned, streets cracked, and smoke rising into the sky. Yet the humans did not despair. They rebuilt what they could, repaired what they could, and helped each other through the worst of the destruction. He had seen other species crumble in similar situations, panic, chaos, and fear. But humans acted differently. They did not complain. They did not fight among themselves. They worked together calmly, logically, and with determination. Every small action mattered. Every life mattered. Krillak realized that what made humans dangerous in battle was not just their courage, but their capacity to endure and rebuild. They could survive losses that would have broken others, and they could learn from every setback. Human diplomacy. Even during war, humans had a remarkable ability to negotiate and cooperate. Krillak remembered one key moment when an alien commander approached Captain Alara, demanding surrender. Instead of fear or aggression, she spoke clearly, showing respect for the alien's position while firmly defending her people. Through logic, courage, and empathy, she convinced several neutral alien species to support the human cause. Krillak was astounded. Humans did not rely solely on weapons. They relied on understanding, reasoning, and building alliances. That combination made them unpredictable and unstoppable. The moral courage. Krillak had fought countless battles where victory was the only goal. Many species killed without hesitation, abandoned the weak, and exploited fear. Humans were different. In one battle, Krillak saw a human soldier save wounded aliens, even those who had fought against them. The soldier risked his life, placing honor above revenge. Humans did not always seek victory at any cost. They valued life, fairness, and justice. Krillak realized that moral courage was as powerful as any weapon. It inspired loyalty, it strengthened unity, and it made humans unforgettable. The final stand. During the final push of the war on Ardentia, humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. Alien forces believed victory was inevitable. Yet humans did not falter. They organized defenses, coordinated counterattacks, and led civilians to safety with precision. Krillak observed humans using creativity and teamwork in every move. Some carried supplies across dangerous terrain. Others set clever traps that turned alien strengths into weaknesses. Captain Alara led from the front, inspiring her people to act with courage and clarity. Even Krillak's own unit was forced to retreat multiple times because humans anticipated their actions and adapted instantly. The humans' ability to stay calm under pressure, to work together, and to inspire hope made them nearly impossible to defeat. Humans inspire others. What surprised Krillak most was the way humans inspired others, both allies and former enemies. He had witnessed alien soldiers hesitate, question, or even defect when they saw the courage and honor of humans. Humans did not intimidate. They inspired. They showed that fighting with intelligence, empathy, and unity was stronger than raw power alone. Krillak realized that humans could change the course of conflicts not just with weapons, but with their spirit and leadership. Reflections on human nature. Krillak often thought about what made humans unique. They were not the strongest species, nor the fastest, nor the most technologically advanced. Yet they possessed something no alien army could replicate: the ability to endure, to innovate, to inspire, and to care. He remembered the first skirmish on Zerath 9, the battles on Vorlis 3, and the siege of Ardentia. In every encounter, humans had shown qualities that defied expectation. They adapted to every situation, finding creative solutions. They fought for others, not just themselves. They respected life, even that of their enemies. They inspired hope in allies and hesitation in opponents. Krillak realized that the true strength of humans lay not in their weapons or numbers, but in their heart, mind, and spirit. A moment of peace. After the battles, Krillak had a rare chance to interact peacefully with humans. He walked through the rebuilt streets of Ardentia, observing their daily lives. Humans were working, laughing, and helping each other. Children played near repaired buildings, while adults rebuilt homes and businesses. One human approached Krillak cautiously, holding out a small gift, a simple carved figure. He did not speak Krillak's language, but his gesture communicated kindness. Krillak felt something unfamiliar: respect and admiration from the very species he had once thought primitive. Humans did not fear Krillak. They did not attack without reason. They treated him with dignity, as if acknowledging that even enemies could be worthy of respect. That moment stayed with Krillak forever. Lessons for the alien cadets. Back in the academy, Krillak turned to the cadets and spoke clearly. "Do you understand now?" he asked. "Humans are not just soldiers. They are thinkers, creators, and moral warriors. They fight for each other, for hope, and for what they believe is right. They endure losses that would destroy others, and they rise stronger every time." He paused, letting the words sink in. Underestimating them is dangerous, but respecting them, learning from them, that is wisdom. They are terrifying, yes, but not because of violence. They are terrifying because they are unstoppable in spirit. The cadets listened, some nodding slowly, others wide-eyed in awe. Krillak had planted the seeds of respect, and he knew those seeds would grow as they faced humans in the future. Humans as a symbol. Krillak often thought about what humans represented. They were a reminder that strength was not always physical. Courage was not always loud. Leadership did not require domination. Humans represented hope, resilience, and unity. They showed that even the smallest, seemingly weakest species could change the course of wars and inspire allies across the galaxy. Krillak realized that humans were not just fighters. They were symbols of what could be achieved when intelligence, heart, and courage came together. The final message. Before concluding his stories, Krillak gave the cadets one last lesson. "Remember this," he said. "When you face humans, do not rely on fear or power alone. Observe, adapt, respect, learn. They are not perfect, but they are extraordinary. They endure, they inspire, and they fight with everything they have. That is why humans will always be remembered, not just as warriors, but as a species that defines courage and ingenuity. The cadets sat in awe, imagining the courage, ingenuity, and heart of humans. Krillak knew he had shared more than stories. He had shared a vision of humanity, a vision that would shape how future generations of aliens understood and interacted with humans. A legacy of respect. Krillak's tales of human courage spread quickly among the Academy's students. Many cadets began to question their own assumptions, their own tactics, and even the ways their species waged war. Some wrote notes, others debated quietly, and a few even approached Krillak with questions about humans. The veteran smiled, knowing that the humans' legacy had begun in the hearts of the next generation of aliens. Humanity was no longer just a species to fear or defeat. They were a force of inspiration, a reminder of the power of courage, intelligence, and unity. As Krillak looked back one last time on the battles he had survived, he felt a deep respect and gratitude for the humans who had unknowingly taught him a lesson. True strength comes from the heart, and the human heart was unlike any he had ever seen.